Russia's ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, has strongly condemned the joint U.S. German statement announcing plans to deploy American long-range fire capabilities in Germany, starting in 2026. Speaking to the media, Antonov labeled the initiative as a grave misstep by Washington that threatens global security and risks triggering a new arms race in Europe. In his remarks, Antonov criticized the U.S. and German decision as a provocative move that undermines international stability and disregards previous arms control agreements. He argued that the planned deployment, which includes advanced long-range missiles such as the SM-6 and Tomahawk cruise missiles, represents a significant escalation of military tensions.
In fact, it refers to the U.S. plans to deploy intermediate and shorter-range missiles in Europe. This is a serious mistake of Washington. Such extremely destabilizing steps pose a direct threat to international security and strategic stability.
Antonov highlighted that the U.S. decision to expand its missile capabilities in Europe disregards the spirit of past arms control treaties, particularly the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces (INF) Treaty, which was instrumental in reducing missile arsenals during the Cold War. He emphasized that the U.S. and Germany's actions not only escalate military tensions, but also ignore the efforts of Russian President Vladimir Putin to promote disarmament and enhance global security.
The Americans are increasing the risks of a missile arms race. They forget that tying the knot of confrontation can provoke an uncontrolled escalation against the background of heightened tensions between Russia and NATO.
Antonov also questioned the wisdom of Germany's decision to host U.S. missile systems, suggesting that it would place German territory in Russia's crosshairs. He argued that the deployment signifies a dangerous escalation that could have severe consequences for regional stability.
I would like to emphasize that Russia's tolerance for provocations against the security of our country is not unlimited. Do they really not understand in Germany that the appearance of the U.S. missile strike capabilities on German territory means that these capabilities will wind up in the Russian crosshairs?
Meanwhile, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergey Ryabkov said that Russia will formulate a military strategy to counter the Pentagon's recent announcement of plans to deploy advanced long-range weapons in Germany starting in 2026. Speaking on the sidelines of the 10th BRICS Parliamentary Forum in St. Petersburg, Ryabkov emphasized that Russia would address the new threat with a measured and strategic approach, steering clear of Cold War-era tensions. In a statement to reporters, Ryabkov rejected any notion that the current situation mirrors the Cold War dynamics of the late 20th century. He highlighted that history will not repeat itself as the geopolitical landscape has evolved since the 1979 deployment of intermediate-range missiles in Western Europe, which ultimately led to arms reduction agreements in the 1980s. The US and German governments announced earlier that they would jointly deploy long-range fire capabilities, including SM-6 missiles, Tomahawk cruise missiles, and developmental hypersonic weapons at a German military base in 2026. The deployment is part of a broader plan to enhance NATO's military presence in Europe and demonstrate the US commitment to the alliance's defense posture. Ryabkov criticized the U.S. German plan as a destabilizing move that threatens European security. He noted that while the new capabilities will begin arriving after the 2024 U.S. presidential election, the potential for a shift in U.S. policy under a future administration, such as a possible return of former President Donald Trump, adds to the uncertainty surrounding the deployment.
It's hard for me to say what the U.S. and Germany expect in this situation as the two parties that will implement the agreement. I don't think they believe it's possible that history will repeat itself. The situation has changed radically.
The US and Germany's announcement coincided with the second day of NATO's 75th anniversary summit in Washington, where NATO members reaffirmed their support for Ukraine's future membership in the alliance. Outgoing NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg emphasized that Ukraine's accession would depend on the fulfillment of certain conditions and the consensus of member states. Without nerves, without emotions, we will develop, first of all, a military response to the new threat, Ryabkov reaffirmed, maintaining that Russia's approach would focus on defense rather than escalation.